We went into a facility in the middle of a pandemic that is designed to hold no more than 250 people. Today, there's more than 4,000 people. How could President Biden and Kamala Harris allow this to go on and not even come here and see it for themselves?
Congressman Steve Scalise and other Republican leaders visiting the southern border today, condemning the conditions of overcrowding at migrant facilities, calling on President Biden to make immediate changes. Alex Hogan is in Mission, Texas, with the latest. Alex?
Hi, Dagan. Two separate tours within 12 hours. One just after midnight that we joined with Border Patrol, and then one here along the river, the Rio Grande, which is the real border. That one was with the Texas Public Safety Department. Now, this is a live drone look with our Fox flight team at this part of the country. Now, last night we went out on the border, and we know just within this last month there was a staggering number of migrants that crossed. 172,000 people last month. 53,000 of them were family units, and 19,000 were unaccompanied kids. One border agent says that it's the busiest he's ever seen it. Last night, groups of migrants, mostly strangers, joined together for safety in numbers. Many stick along the way, needing medical treatment. And we hear one child cry off in the distance last night. We ventured off to find a separate group, completely lost in the brush with not one light as far as you could see. Now, children are crossing alone. Agents finding kids as young as 2 or 3 years old. Others, small children caring for ones even younger than them.
We see young kids 8 years old in care of a 5-year-old, or in care of a 3-year-old, and the older kid, I mean, that's the weight of the world on that kid's shoulders.
Meanwhile, new now, the Biden administration's southern border coordinator will step down at the end of the month, according to reports. That is Roberta Jacobson. Now, today, delegates also stepped onto a boat behind me to venture off into the Rio Grande River. While it's just about the width of a football field, the trip across is not a safe one. We are told by agents and other officials that people drown. They also capsize, and also the current takes them away. Last month in March, we saw a 71% increase from February of the number of crossings. Meanwhile, many children are caught in the crossroads of this political problem. Dagan.
Alex, thank you so much for that. Alex Hogan in Texas. Joining me now is Chad Wolf, former acting Department of Homeland Security Secretary, a Heritage Foundation visiting fellow. Chad, great to see you. This has been going on for weeks. Has this administration, the Biden administration, done one tangible thing to stop this child abuse?
Well, I think it's very difficult to point to one thing. Obviously, they rolled back a number of policies and initiatives that we had put in place to stem this type of crisis. We saw similar numbers in 2019, but we put in a number of measures in place, and of course the Biden administration rolled those back without putting anything up to stop the number of individuals illegally crossing. And so you're going to continue to see these numbers not only in the month of March, but obviously April, May, and June as this continues. And again, I keep saying it, they continue to treat this as though it's a capacity issue and a crisis, and they continue to build more facilities, which is going to encourage more and more individuals to come. So until they get serious about actually enforcing the laws on our border, holding accountable those individuals that are breaking the law, and making it clear that it's not okay to send your minor, your child, or a family unit across that border, if that's not going to change, or they're not going to put policies in place to effectuate that change, then we're going to continue to see these numbers month after month.
I'll give the people in the Biden administration the benefit of the doubt. No one is this incompetent. That they don't want the bad press, obviously, but they do want open borders, de facto open borders. Nancy Pelosi said a couple days ago, the fact is that we're on a good path at the border under the leadership of President Biden. She's telling the truth if you want open borders and want illegal immigrants flooding into the United States.
I think this is a result of, folks in the Biden administration who don't believe in immigration law, don't believe in immigration enforcement, and start talking about amnesty bills. And we've seen 2 amnesty bills passed in the House of Representatives. And so when you have a thought process and those are your policy objectives at the end of the day, you're going to continue to see this type of surge because folks south of the border that want to come to the U.S. are watching these developments. They understand if they get to the border, they're not going to be turned around. And they understand if they stay here long enough, perhaps they too will get amnesty. And again, it's very, very dangerous. It's a very inhumane policy, and because you are encouraging folks to take a very dangerous journey. And we know that the vast majority don't don't qualify for asylum and will have to be returned to their home countries at the end of the day.
I want to get your reaction to this. According to a Reuters report and interview, the Biden administration is considering sending cash payments to Central Americans, trying to convince them from making the trek into the United States, trying to cross into the U.S., potentially sending money. And we're spending, how many millions of dollars on facilities, $60 million a week to house migrants. So cash transfers to Guatemala, Honduras, and El Salvador. This is based on an interview with Roberta Jacobson. She's the Southern Border Coordinator who is planning to leave that position. But let's send cash to these nations and people so they don't come into the U.S.
Not only is that absurd, it simply won't work. There's nothing to stop an individual unless you fix what's going on at the border today. There is going to be nothing that stops them from taking money, doing whatever they can to get to that border because they know if they get there, they will be released in the United States. That is their goal. We know that the vast majority of these folks are economic migrants. They're looking for jobs or they're looking to be reunited with their family. And if they know if they get to the border, then the Biden administration has signaled through messaging or their policies that they will be able to stay here. And that's exactly the wrong message that we want to send. We want to make sure that folks have access to the asylum system if they're really being persecuted, but we know 90% of them are not. And we need to enforce the laws that we have, and we don't need to send money elsewhere. We need to do the job. The Biden administration has a playbook for how this should work. We gave it to them. We briefed them on it, and we told them the consequences of what would happen if they took that down. And unfortunately, we're seeing the result of that.
When you briefed them, what was their reaction? How did they react?
So they were mainly in receive mode. You got to remember this is before Inauguration Day, so this is back in December and January. So they're in receive mode, and they're understanding what we're saying. They're not offering up a lot of information about policies that they would undertake shortly after January 20th. So in some respects, our job was trying to read them, trying to understand what they would do, and then trying to explain to them if they did take certain actions, this is what was going to happen. But over a dozen different briefings given to them by CBP and ICE and other elements of the immigration components at DHS. So they had a full picture of what they were faced with, of the limitations in Border Patrol stations, HHS facilities, and how that was going to work in a COVID environment. And for whatever reason, they decided to ignore that and move forward. And unfortunately, we are now seeing numbers, the highest we've ever seen in 20 years. And in some cases for minors, the highest we've ever seen ever since we've started keeping stats. And it's only going to get worse.
I called it child abuse at the start of the segment, and I think anybody would question how much receiving was going on from those Biden officials as you were briefing them. Chad Wolf, great to see you. Thank you so much. Have a good weekend.
All right, thank you.